Welcome to another episode of the African Five-A-Side podcast. As usual, my name is Meher Mizahi, and today I'm joined by a special guest who's making his return to the podcast. We spoke to him prior to the 2023 African Cup of Nations to preview the Cameroonian Indomitable Lions. And today he's back because one of the main headlines in African football has been Samuel Eto'o. Whether it can be, supposed legal troubles that he's been in with the Confederation of African Football, to the performance of national teams, to sometimes even some conflict with his own sports minister. And I kind of wanted to understand a little bit more about what was going on. And I thought there's nobody better to speak to than Giovanni Bambe. Gio, what's up, man?
Hi, Mae.
You doing good?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm happy to make my return to the podcast, and obviously, the first time we've had to talk again after the AFCON in Cote d'Ivoire, which was, by the way, a joy to cover by
Yeah.
your side. So,
It's great to see you there. So
yeah,
let's jump right into it. I don't want to waste any time, and let's try to be as fair, as objective, as honest as possible.
sure.
Samuel Eto'o arrives as the president of FECAFOOT in December 2021, just
Mm.
a few months prior to his country, or even 1 month prior to his country hosting the tournament itself. What kind of situation was Eto'o stepping into in December 2021 when he's taking over from, Seydou Njoya? What kind of challenges were there? Let's try to be as honest as possible. Can you paint a picture of the landscape?
FECAFOOT has always had its troubles. In-house fighting thrives here and there. It's true that when he came in to take over Seydou Munjoya, we administratively we were having a lot of lacunas and loopholes. Like it has always been facing problems, trouble problems with subventions, getting subventions to the league, the professional league body, which had to dish it out to the clubs. Our championship was halted every now and then because clubs were clamoring for their subventions from the government and, of course, the sponsors at the time that we had. Any time that it was delayed, the clubs just stopped playing. They went back to their houses, and it made it in such a way that our championship for some time took 9 months, 8 months, and we weren't able to give our champions to the CAF interclub competitions on time. It made it in such a way that we had to, start giving back champions from the past. And then, it troubled us a lot. And equally, people were losing interest before Eto'o came in. People didn't just have a reason to go to the field and watch football games. When they were asked, they simply told you that they had lost interest because talent-wise, administrative-wise, marketing-wise, everything was not spot on. So, but then our national setup, we ended third at the AFCON, which was fair to say the least. And of course, we ended third the last time we hosted in 72. So it was just like a repeat of history.
So I have
And
a
yeah.
question. What if we're talking
Mhm.
about the AFCON? Remember, he's been in power for what, one month, maybe maximum 2 months. Um, Can we even judge him for this AFCON, whether it's good, whether for the good aspects of the AFCON or the bad aspects of the AFCON? Like, well, in terms of organization, like how much influence could he have had? And even for the good results, maybe good results, he could have had more influence because, we see he's very charismatic, speaking to the players and so on and so forth. But how much credit or how much criticism can we attribute to Eto'o for the 2022 AFCON, which I think overall for the Cameroonian national team was a success?
Yeah, listen, Mike, that's why I was listening amongst the things that Eto'o came and met in, because I don't credit or discredit him for what occurred during the AFCON. It would be so unfair for us to do that. He came into a setup that already had a coach. They had whatever they had going in for them. But what I can credit him for is for his role, playing the role for the AFCON to be hosted in Cameroon, because there were times that we had lots of hiccups. We didn't know if Stadia will be ready before time. CAF in and year, 24 teams. AFCON was never going to be easy. We had numerous visits from CAF, and there was white smoke hovering all over, asking if Cameroon was going to be ready to host that AFCON. And we had really made competition in the likes of Morocco, Egypt, there to on cue to host if Cameroon was not ready. So, Eto'o came in, broke his back, was there for Cameroon, ensured that Dr. Patrice Motsepe, when he went to the presidency, ensured that he followed him wherever he went to in Cameroon, did his best as he could do per lobbying, and ensured that that title of host did stick with Cameroon. So yeah, I credit him for. I say he's one of the reasons why the AFCON finally had to come to Cameroon. But crediting or discrediting him for our performance, I don't think would be the right thing. I think that's the former executive talking about Seydou Moumoudjia, because he prepared the AFCON before Eto'o stepped in his shoes and won the elections in December when the AFCON was to be played in January. So you see.
And the Indomitable Lions, they finished third. In my opinion, they played the best football in the tournament. They were probably the most impressive side. I think they scored the most goals with that, very, very emblematic duo of Karl Toko Ekambi, Vincent Boubacar. What I want to ask you is, this was done under the tutelage of Tony Conceição, the Portuguese coach. After the AFCON, despite finishing third, despite showing an impressive performance, although they didn't win it at home, but still very, very, I think, a positive performance, Samuel Eto'o decides to sack Tony Conceição and bring in Rigobert Song, who, according to, I think, several of your colleagues in Cameroon at the time, they were a little bit iffy about his track record with the Olympic team, as a coach, I mean. How would you judge that decision? Was it justified? Was it not justified? Why did he make this decision?
You know a lot about African politics and the way it goes. You know that during campaigns, promises are made. So that's the case with Eto'o and Rigobert Song. Rigobert Song is a powerful figure in Cameroon, very well respected individual. And he vouched for Eto'o. He gave his support for Eto'o. And in return, Eto'o promised him he would be the coach of the senior men's national team. So it was as easy as that. Once he got into power, I knew like Song was going to be the person who would be appointed coach of the senior men's national team, despite the fact that he didn't have glorious days with, the junior setups, the Shan team. But because he backed Eto'o, he followed Eto'o to the North region for campaigns. As far as the North region could be, he followed him, boarded a flight to the North region, took him to places. And Eto'o was like, you were the captain before I took over. And in many ways, you are a senior, you always remain a senior lion. So when I win these elections, you're going to be my man. And from what I understood, from what panned out, the dynamics, immediately Eto'o won. Listen, it was a very tricky situation because we had just 2 games. We had done all the hard work from the group stages. We played Cote d'Ivoire, and then we qualified for the final phase. Sorry. So I'm thinking in Eto'o's mind, Conceição has just a couple of weeks to go on his contract, but the weeks we see him, we mean he has to play against Algeria in the 2 games, home and away. Now, if Conceição stays there and you have Song in mind, Conceição wins those games, somehow qualifies for the World Cup, you can't sack him.
Yeah, it's too difficult to sack him after, yeah.
It's too difficult. The public will come after you with a lot of stick. Why did you do this? Though everything is possible in Cameroon. So he had to find a way to get Conceição out of the equation before those 2 games and hope that Rigobert Song can come and win and take us through to the World Cup.
Which he did. Despite losing the first match in Japoma, in Douala, that was a huge shock even to Algerians. We did not expect to win that match in Douala. With the last kick of the game in Blida, as big of a shock, if not bigger, the Cameroonian national team, Karl Toko Ekambi, with the last kick of the game, qualifies the Indomitable Lions to the 2022 World Cup in Doha in Qatar. When that happens, is his choice does it seem like his choice is justified, and how much credit does he deserve there? Because wow, I mean, and the manner, the dramatic manner in which they qualified, can you describe the atmosphere around the team at the time?
For the atmosphere around the team, I think they were already petit spats.
Sorry, I mean from the public.
From the public. Oh yeah, euphoria, absolute pandemonium. People were running helter-skelter, At that time, it was his peak. It remains his peak as president of the Cameroon FA, because no one saw that coming. It was absolute genius for him to bring a coach like that and then succeed to qualify for the World Cup in such a manner. I mean, such drama at the end in Blida. We didn't expect to beat Algeria and qualify for the World Cup. So we took it with both hands. And for those who cared to look beyond that, we're thinking of the lawsuits. And it later happened because
I was going to get to
Conceição,
that next. The
yeah,
Conceição
because
lawsuit or the Le Coq Sportif lawsuit or both?
no, first the Conceição lawsuit. It was the Conceição lawsuit before the Lecoq Sportive lawsuit. So Conceição couldn't understand the reason why with his team, because Song changed virtually nothing with that team. It was Conceição's idea, the playing, the players even he called were all from Conceição. So he couldn't understand why 3 weeks left to the end of his contract, and you can't give him the confidence to coach those 2 games and make a name for himself too, probably carry a selection to the World Cup. I think it was going to be his first time in his career to do so. So he filed a lawsuit, and we're talking of billions, Maher. We're talking of billions, and it didn't look right. I think up to this point in time, we've not settled that yet. We've
How
not
can he
settled that
justify
yet.
suing for billions if there's just a few weeks left on his contract? Surely he's just going to ask for the dues that's left on his salary, no?
He went over that. He didn't just ask for the dues that was left on his salary, because the contract, first of all, was between him and the Minister of Sports and the former executive. So surely Eto'o knew nothing about that contract. He just made the decision thinking, oh, we're just going to pay him off and then he leaves. But from what we saw and from what the court was asking us to pay, shows that definitely there were terms stipulated in that contract. If unlawfully terminated, then he was going to go home with a very huge pocket, with a very huge wallet. So surely Eto'o didn't know about that, and yeah, we are condemned to paying him that money. So getting now to the Lecoq Sport. Before I even get there, when Eto'o came in, his first few games, there was an AFCON qualifier where we played against Burundi in Tanzania, because obviously Burundi didn't have homologated fields by the Confederation of African Football, so we had to play that game in Tanzania, and we nicked that game 1-0. Carl Toko Ekambi scored the lone goal, and then something that we've never seen before in Cameroonian football happened, or we've never seen, or it's never been captured in camera. Something that's never been captured in camera happened, because it could happen in the dressing room and it stays there. But when you film it and then make it public, there's a problem. You're hurting the ego of these guys. We know how much these guys make. We know how much stress they took to get there. We know their stories for most of them. So full time, Cameroon 1, Burundi 0 in Tanzania. We see the president steps into the locker room with his hands in his pocket, talking down on these players, hurting their ego, saying that from now hence, the coach will have to work with him, and nobody's place is assured. Those who have to play will have to pass through the federation, screaming at the top of his voice. I don't know if you saw that video.
Yeah, I remember, I think if I'm not mistaken, some lines like, basically saying that some of you will not be here at the AFCON and you're not playing up to the standard of the national team, something like this, yeah.
Absolutely. Mahe, if you're to do that, keep the camera away. You're not doing it for the fans. You're doing it for your players. You want them to improve. And you're just hurting their ego, doing that as the federation president, not as the coach. So some players took offense from this. From that incident, petit spat started happening. I think Zambo had his fair share. I think Michael Gandhi had his fair share, Unana, and the list goes on. So
These are
when
leaders
we
of
call
the
in,
national team.
yeah, the leaders of the national team felt like, okay, there is a problem, because you could as well pass on this information to us, and then we take it to the boys. Because when you talk down on us in such, and in all honesty, Mahe, spare me that talk of small teams on the continent. I don't think there's any small team on the continent. We take every game as serious. Cape Verde a couple of years back used to be Minos, and then we are just now playing against Cape Verde. We are panicking. In Yaoundé, we are panicking against Cape Verde because we never know what to expect from
Yeah,
this side. They had a very good AFCON,
very good. Yeah.
and yeah, a couple of years back we couldn't even figure out their name, but
Well,
now they're their household name. So
look, I'm just thinking about the concept of, the president of the federation addressing the players, because for those that don't know, like if you watch Samuel Eto'o, especially speaking in French, there's a
mm,
famous interview he did in beIN Sports where he's talking about, Guardiola, and he says, he was never
oh,
a great striker. I mean, he can be very funny, very
yeah,
charming, very charismatic. And but he can also be very direct.
mm,
I don't want to say insulting, but he can rub people the wrong way as well. And I'm
yeah.
just thinking about, as a concept, is this the wrong thing for a federation president to do, to address the team? Maybe addressing the team is okay, but I guess the manner in which you address the team is the issue.
I've dressed the team twice in a year, not just that often.
Yeah, okay. Not after
We've
every
seen
match or at
not
halftime
after
or
every match. Do not train with them every other training session. Oh, do not just be so into the team in that kind of way. Some people are not comfortable. Some players are not comfortable, especially players with whom you've had issues with before. And there are some players who've had this heritage stuff in the national team. They've had either elder brothers or uncles play for the national team before, and they had issues with you, and now you're in their faces. You see, they heard a lot of things about you, and now you're in their faces.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they'll think like, all what I heard about Mr. President is correct.
Mm.
So I think from time to time, Kalusha Bwaya did that when he was president of the FAS. He did that even at the AFCON where they won in 2012. But he didn't just do it often. It becomes sickening when you do it
Yeah,
often.
yeah,
So
understood. Can we move
and in
to,
camera too.
yeah,
Mhm.
go on,
You
finish,
should do
finish.
in camera, not you should do in camera, not
Right,
with everybody with a phone trying to take what you're saying and then post it later. That just puts out something different in the mind of the
right.
players. They're
Okay.
players with kids and family. So maybe they think you're trying to humiliate them as well.
Yeah, yeah, understood. Okay, let's move it along because again, I don't want to take too much of your time. Can we talk about the Le Coq Sportif contract? What was the problem there? I didn't really ever get any details. I think the Cameroonian Federation was saying that Le Coq Sportif didn't fulfill some of their contractual obligations. I don't know what that means. I never read any details about that, and Le Coq Sportif was adamant that they did. And that they sued, I believe, the Cameroonian Federation once. I believe they won in a court in Paris, and then the Cameroonian Federation appealed, but they lost that appeal, if I'm not mistaken, again. And what situation has that put FECAFOOT in? Do they have to pay any penalties? Do you know if they have to pay any penalties? What about for the reputation dealing with other brands like Adidas, Nike in the future? Does that ruin the reputation seen as a sort of non-serious bidding or business partner?
Millions of FCFA gone still. We're in serious problems. I think even if Eto'o leaves, the next FA president is going to face a lot of difficulties, yeah, because
But
we are in
why?
hot water.
Why throw this contract away? Explain it to me. I don't understand this.
Okay, so when Eto'o came in, administration is continuous, but most Cameroonians do not give a hoot about it. When an FA president comes in, he wants his own people and the people he can control, and he wants his own contract so he can control as much benefits from there and how it goes. So these were already existing contracts when Eto'o came in. He didn't know anything about the Coq Sportif contract. He didn't know nothing about Antonio Consensao's contract. So in his mind, he's thinking he should terminate them and then get through to his own people. where he can have a better understanding of their contracts and know how he can work with them. And Maher, I'm being fair here. When you hear Cameroon, sponsorship-wise, brands-wise, expecting maybe a Nike, Puma, Adidas, Umbro. So when Eto'o talked about Wanneh Sports, like, Wanneh Sports? I really had to take my phone and go through. Wanneh Sports, who are these guys? And what are they proposing? What are they proposing to have Cameroon? Like, Cameroon is a big deal, in the African market. We are a big deal.
The most iconic shirts in African football, maybe alongside Nigeria, in my opinion. There's no doubt about it.
The most iconic shirts in African football. And I found little or no information about Wanneh Sports. We just gave the popularity. And Eto'o, well, he thought it was necessary to terminate the contract of the Coq Sportif. And it came to a point where the Coq Sportif only asked to produce kits for Cameroon at the World Cup. And despite the fact that their contract had to continue, they only pleaded to do the World Cup and then back out. But the federation didn't accept. They didn't agree. So that was where they were like, okay, you know what? We've dragged this for some time. We have a case because there's an existing contract and we're going to file a lawsuit. And so they filed a lawsuit. They won their case, and we still have monies to pay. I don't think we've gone there yet. So that's why I was saying, even the next federation president after it was going to have a lot of difficulties, dealing with all this cacophony in and around the federation. Finally, we went to the World Cup with Wanneh Sports, and they did what they could, at least I'm being fair to them. But most of their promises to what Eto'o was fighting against, they have not materialized them. Promise a bus for the national team, a bus for the national team. We haven't gotten anything yet. The monies that they said they were going to give, from my inside reports, they haven't given anything yet. So you see, that was just a terrible decision. Because if we are firing the Coq Sportif for doing one thing, and then we get some a little unknown, sports clothing company to come, and then they follow the way of Le Coq Sportif, why didn't you just stick with Le Coq Sportif?
I mean, if a company is not going to follow its contractual obligations, you might as well stay with the bigger brand name, is what at least not get into legal trouble. At least not get into legal trouble.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the crux of this subject with Giovanni Bambe, which is Samuel Eto'o's legal troubles with the Confederation of African Football and FIFA. Will he be sort of ejected from his seat as FECAFOOT president? Dr. Patrice Motsepe spoke about it recently. There have been many articles that came out actually during the last AFCON about it all, and I think we're going to get into some juicy details on that. So just be right back after this ad break. And we're back with a special episode of the African Five-A-Side podcast with my colleague, my friend, my brother, Giovanni Bambe Wanneh from Cameroon. Right before the break, we were saying we're going to get into the really controversial things about Samuel Eto'o's tenure. So let's jump right into it. I believe about a few years ago now, CamFoot, a website, if I'm not mistaken, it was CamFoot who, sorry, just give me a sec. Baby's crying. 1 sec.
Okay.
Yeah, so I believe a while back, CamFoot, Cameroonian news site, I believe, are the ones that got their hands on leaked audio between Victoria United president and Samuel Eto'o, Victoria United president in Quain. And in this leaked audio, it seems like Samuel Eto'o is angry because the Victoria United president was making a scene or getting him in trouble. People were complaining about him to Eto'o. We know that these two were very, very close. Samuel Eto'o said a few times in the recording that, there's only me, you, and two other people. The four of us are gonna, take on this challenge of changing Cameroonian football. I don't know who he meant there or what the deal was there, but it seemed like there was an unnaturally close relationship between him and the president. They're calling each other bro. And towards the end, Eto'o says, you know what, give me some time to meet with the refereeing committee. I haven't been to Cameroon yet. Um, and when he comes back, uh, he's accused of having, influenced the referees in a sort of unfair way because in the following 12 matches, Victoria United go undefeated. I believe there's 4 red cards attributed against their opponents, a few different penalties, and people are just shocked by the positive refereeing in their favor. Um, I just have a few questions about this. So first of all, is FECAFOOT, first of all, are they objective? Because sometimes the way that they were speaking about Eto'o, was like calling him mafia and like his friends mafia and stuff. Which is, for me, I don't know if that's just like not great journalism ethics or if they have an agenda against him, number one. Number two, is there any possibility that Eto'o did not actually influence the referees in Victoria United's favor and that he just wanted to correct bad refereeing against Victoria United? Uh, and three, I believe Eto'o and Nkwane have both denied the authenticity of this recording, but I think FECAFOOT even hired a London firm, Earshot, who actually said that this is Samuel Eto'o's voice, this is Nkwane's voice, Bobby D's, I think they call him his voice, and and that this is authentic. And so they hired forensic audio analysts who said this is authentic. So those are my 3 questions, really. Number one are the people that have received this audio, first of all, are they objective or do they have an agenda against Samuel Eto'o? Number two, is there any possibility that he was just correcting bad officiating against the club? And number three, is there any way that this is an inauthentic recording?
Talking about the authenticity of practicing journalists, I think they'll be in the best place to respond to that. But whether we decide to be mediocre or great journalists lies on our shoulders, but posterity is always there to judge. But FECAFOOT has always been credible in Cameroon football. I think before Eto'o's coming to power, they've always been there. And they've had their fair share, of developing, helping the game to grow. And yeah, I do agree that with some of the wordings, some of the ways the article was written, we could be better worded. But I just decided to pick out the sense from it. I equally talked to the editor of FECAFOOT, so he's someone who is I'm close to, and yeah, so I just spoke to him about how he could better word the articles. But he is French speaking, and I try my best to be bilingual, French and English. So he does most of his practice with the French language. So yeah, so I do think that it could be better the way the article was worded, but there was no lie in that article from my findings as well. And the audio, in fact, before the audio was leaked, I listened to it, but then, as a journal, you don't want to delve and jump into that sort of trouble without, getting real proof that this actually happened. So I had it in mind. I was still doing my underground findings, and then boom, I saw it online, and FECAFOOT had posted it. I was like, okay, kudos. If they could back it up, and they did with the investigations that they paid, the law firm in England to go ahead and do. So I think that at that level, the information was correct. Now about Eto's friendship with Quine Valentine, he equally mentioned his nickname Bob Didi. He came into football around 2019. He came into football around 2019, and he became the president of Victoria United at the regional league level. He has been having lots of inside outs with the club even before Eto'o came into power, Kwame Valentine has always had issues with supporters. He's always had issues with the fan club. He's always had issues with the way he runs his club. And since he's a newbie in all of these things, there was no way he was going to leave that side of him, because it's this way he reacts to situations that are really funny. There was one time in the Elite 2 Championship, he walked into the pitch and picked up the ball and told everyone to go home. So
And they
he
actually
is
stopped the
one.
match, and that was the
Yeah,
end of it. They never got the
that,
ball
that was
again.
that was the end of the game.
But this is not like this is not unique to Cameroon. This happens in North Africa. This happens in
in
Greece. It happens.
in
You
every
have
other
crazy football
place. So
presidents. It
yeah,
happens.
yeah, sure. So he's one who reacts to issues that way. So we go back to when it came in. It was during the elections. He told Eto'o he was going to give him his support. He backed Eto'o in every way he could, financially, morally. He went the extra mile to support Eto'o. Then he was still in the regional championship, which is equivalent to the third tier in Cameroon. And then when Eto'o took over too, most of Eto'o's problems here, I stand corrected, but most of his problems has been having to satisfy everyone who stood by
Yeah,
him
yeah.
during the
Tit
elections.
for tat. You helped me, so I have to help
Tit
you.
for tat.
Giving Song a
Trace
job
it.
as a
Yeah,
coach.
trace it.
Quinn. Mm.
One of sports too, you know. Everybody who stepped in, he has as a burden to give back to that person. And that has haunted him, because Quinn Valentine helped him that much. And he was like, no, I don't want positions. I just want to win the championship, you know. So it was really going to be difficult. But as we speak, Victoria United are the champions of Cameroon.
Is that necessarily because they had favorable officiating, or because I think I read a statement of his where he said that he invested more than, I think, €1 million or £1 million, something like that, into his club. They obviously have some decent players. You can't just win the championship on refereeing solely. Uh, I want to know, like, what are your thoughts on him in that sense, and how much he invested into Opopo?
My football, I know of projects that are long lasting, and the teams have not yet won any trophies, but they are really solid projects. The way Opopo is going, I told someone, I really doubt about how long they are going to be in this, because it looks to me like a one-man show. If Quinn, like for instance, there was one time in the middle of the season, he wasn't getting any favors. Games were played fine, neutral. He backed out of the championship, saying that he doesn't want to play any longer. He feels cheated. And I can tell you, 4 out of 6 games that he played at the earlier stages of the championship, I watched them. And because he's used to, being on the good side, or he's used to, let's not necessarily gaining favors from referee, he's used to being lucky. Let me put it that way. He's used to being lucky somehow. And he's just used to that. So when he doesn't get the luck from the referees, he feels he's cheated. This happens every other time. When there's a 50-50 and it goes against him, he cries foul. Like, oh, he's going to call the federation. He feels cheated. He doesn't want to be in this championship any longer. So he's that kind of person, and dealing with that kind of person is really difficult. And he too has been one of the reasons why Eto'o has had some turbulent moments at the federation, because right now CAF concluded their investigations. They invited them both. I don't think they attended in Cairo, but I think the results of that investigations could be out anytime soon. So he too is one of Eto's major problems, because he recorded his friend. How on earth do you record your friend while having a one-on-one discussion with him? So he made that happen, and he is equally braggadocious in what he does, because he wants people to know that he knows Eto'o, and Eto'o listens to him. So in my head, I'm thinking that's the reason he recorded, because he's going to tell people, oh, listen, this is what Eto'o told
Yeah.
me, and
Yeah.
he's going to do it, which is so wrong. So wrong. I'm surprised Eto'o stuck with him after that, because he could file a lawsuit against him too, for the damage
Yeah.
and everything that he costed him, because he was so poor. Eto'o is a global icon, and when such things happen like that, it doesn't speak well. Recording him, and it's leaked, so it was really terrible. And then somehow he and Eto'o found a level ground to mend their relationship, and they moved on from there. As we speak, he's the champion of Cameroon, gained over 16 penalties, 16, 15 penalties each, on their way to the championship. And the funny thing is, he wasn't even in the top four to go for the playoffs. A team was taken out of the top four, and Victoria United
Disqualified.
was placed disqualified from the top four. Victoria United was placed there, and then the team had to play the playdowns for those who would go to the Elite Two Championship, Cameroon second tier. So Opopo had to play for the playdowns to see who would descend to the Elite Two Championship, and then all of a sudden, some decisions come their way. They go up to the top tier, and then some of the games, I don't want to get deeper into it, but some of the games and the officiating was not the best, and then he wins the championship. So you forgive people who were saying that Quine Valentine and Eto'o made this happen. So, having said that, I think he has some quality in the side, but he's just in a rush. He wants to win the CAF Champions League.
Yeah.
That's his objective. He wants to win the CAF Champions League, and
That's
the way
not
he's
easy.
going about it, I really do doubt, because you see heavyweights, who went about it the right way.
Yeah,
We're
like
talking about
Sundowns, for
Mamelodi.
example. Yeah,
Mamelodi
yeah,
Sundowns went about it the right way, and they only have one star to their name, But they have been doing the right thing. They have been investing. They have been persistent. It's going to come. It's like the
absolutely,
the city
absolutely.
the city story.
Mm.
We're not talking European football, but I think you watched the Paris Saint-Germain match yesterday, and you saw how they were knocked out. This is a team that has been putting in lots of money into football. They have not had any joy yet. But what do? They have to go on, keep on. So, yeah,
Okay.
Quine Valentine, I think that he could go about his project in a better way and still make it.
If he's not punished by CAF, by the way, if you said he's
If he's not
implicated in
punished
this,
like that.
this could be interesting. So let's wrap up with this Quine Valentine Victoria United at part of Eto's stint. When he said there's 4 people that are with us, that we're gonna change the face of Cameroon football. Do you know who he's talking about? Or like, no? Or is that too, we don't want to
He
assume
was
too much,
talking,
or
I don't want to assume too much,
yeah,
but
yeah,
in
yeah.
my head, I'm thinking of a couple of vice presidents,
Mm. Okay.
still people who helped him to get into power,
Okay.
still
Okay.
people who put a lot, on his way to ascending the throne of Cameroon's top
Right.
job. So
Okay.
that's virtually what he meant.
There was another controversy that's been levied against Samuel Eto'o. It's that he signed a sort of sponsoring deal with 1xBet, the betting company that's really all across the continent of Africa. Many people believe that this violates the FIFA Code of Ethics, which states that individuals, and I quote, shall not have any interest either directly or indirectly in entities, companies, organizations that promote, broker, arrange, or conduct betting, gambling, lotteries, or similar events or transactions connected with football matches and competitions. So that seems like pretty clear cut to me. And it seems like even if there's no concrete proof that Eto'o was implicated in match fixing with Victoria United, this by itself could sort of disqualify him perhaps from holding office as FECAFOOT president, because he signs this deal with 1xBet. And there are still tweets up that I found from 6 months ago, not that long ago, where he's saying,
Yeah,
use my code
codes to
to
play
vote.
Papa
Yeah,
Eto'o.
yeah, exactly. I think that's the code. Yeah, I do think that's the code, and they're still up, and nothing's been removed. I think he puts in brackets if you are a Cameroonian player, like do not bet or something like this, and that's it. So your thoughts on this 1xBet deal, which was again a little bit bizarre.
that was shooting himself in the foot. If I'm being honest, he signed a 2-year deal with 1xBet before they got in as sponsors of the federation. They are in double capacity. Eto'o as sponsor, as a client, and the Cameroon Football Federation as a client.
So this is the conflict of interest, clear, by the way.
Yeah, clear conflict of interest. There's no disputing that fact. And I don't know if you noticed or how you've been keeping close tabs with our football, but in the last few match days, all betting companies took out our games from their platforms.
I didn't know that, but usually when that happens, there's suspicions of match fixing, usually.
There are suspicions of match fixing. And the format of our league this season just paved the way for match fixing to be at its frightening best. Let me tell you what. We played the entire season. This was the format here. We had 20 plus teams, 9 teams in one pool, 10 teams in the other pool. We played the entire season. The first 4 were going to play the playoffs for the championship, and all others beneath 5 and 4, they were going to play for the playdowns, those who were going to be relegated. So this is what some teams did, Mahe, unfortunately. They got into the championship, made money through match fixing because there was entirely no need. The bottom, those who are at the bottom could still be maintained at the end of the day. So why break a sweat? You could just as well enter, get some money via betting. For those who have the intentions of playing for the playoffs up, you give them the games, make enough money for yourself, and then go and participate in the playoffs down, which is the real deal, by the way, and then maintain.
There's more financial incentive that way, is what you're saying.
Yeah, there's more financial incentive that way. So this was what some teams did. Some teams ended the league with 5 points, the regular championship, and then they went in and battled to stay afloat in the first year. So to me, the day that the draws were done, I raised my hand and I asked the question, but Mr. Director, don't you think that this is going to be a really big problem, especially with what we are facing with gambling and match fixing and so on? I was told that I should respect my job as a journalist and not get into too much into matters of the FA. So I just kept my distance, but I had a worry since then. And it turned out that worry, came back to haunt them, because there were lots of match fixing allegations labeled on teams, here and there. There's some I really did my investigation and I had concrete proof about, from the referees to the both teams, to the number of goals. There were games that we got rumors of the goals that were going to be scored before the end. You get an exact score like 3-0, and the game at the end of the game is 3-0. It doesn't speak well of our football. So I think that format paved the way for gambling and match fixing amongst major stakeholders and actors in our game, which was nothing good to behold at all. So I think by next season we should be changing that format. It didn't help our teams, and I think we should be changing that format. I don't think the next question you asked was about.
No, I was asking about him signing that contract. Do you believe him signing the contract this encourages this kind of thing, or what? How did you tie it together? Or? Yeah.
Sure, it encourages. No matter no matter what you tell the footballers, they're always going to gamble. The club presidents, the actors are always going to gamble. And the fact that, you are putting it on your platforms, you cannot limit it. You cannot tell Cameroonians that do not play, because once it's on your platform, it's an advert. And so
right.
lots of people engaged in that this season.
That one is pretty cut and dry. I think I'm gonna try to wrap this up now, if it's okay with you. 2 last questions. Number 1, I remember some of the campaign promises that Samuel Eto'o made before he was elected. Things like looking after the local players, the domestic players. They're saying things like they don't have health insurance. What you were saying, the salaries were not being paid, the championship is stop-start. overall, despite the issues that you just clearly pointed out, would you say that the average Cameroonian domestic league football player is better off under Eto'o in terms of salaries being paid, money's coming in, worse off, or just about the same? Just a quick one there.
Maher, if I tell you the players are better off, if there's a player watching this, is going to come for me. I tell you, my brother.
So is it about the same? It's about the same?
He's going to come for me. I think there's no change, absolutely. You know what?
Okay.
Clubs, I could wait after this. I don't know if I'll have the time to queue it up and send to you. We've had over 12 professional clubs complain of monies owed them by the federation. So I'm talking subventions, I'm talking sponsorship monies. 1xBet, no adverts intended, Maher, please. 1xBet, Tiof, and what's this? MTN are the three major sponsors of the league and the championship. But the monies that these three main sponsors put in, clubs have not received any.
That's shocking.
I'm talking from an insider's perspective, by the way. And what happens is, with some of the clubs, okay, I have some of the clubs on my clientele. There's one club in Limbe, I don't know if I should call the name, but for the benefit of the doubt, Isosa, they had a major sponsor and it was printed on their jersey, but they had to take it off because MTN had to be there. And
Right,
then
right.
this major sponsor decided, we're not getting enough visibility. We can't give you the monies we agreed. You see? So they are not making money either side, either way. Because the federation,
Yeah.
first of all, no club knows what was signed between those three sponsors and the federation. So even if they are giving 200,000 in francs FCFA, they are going to take. And by the way, nothing has been given. So these clubs have had to find a way to maneuver past that, and we're hoping that the Cameroon Cup will come to an end so that they can just take a breather, because we have had about 2 to 3 clubs attempt to back out of the Cameroon Cup, citing lack of financing and funds. Because what was promised at the start, as per subvention and sponsorship deals, what was promised at the start, most of these clubs prepared their season with the thought of, okay, we can put in our budget of maybe 70 millions, and if the federation gives us 20 millions, there's going to be 90 millions, which will be enough to take us through the season.
And then
But
they promise the
now
player salaries and
their
then they're
salaries and
behind it.
everything, but now they are stuck because you did your
Accounting, yeah.
you did your accounting, and you just laid down the math, and then you knew you were going to go run through the season, but now they have the hiccups because federation has not given anything. So players are not in any different state
Okay.
from how they used to be. It was true that on paper, the federation changed the minimum salaries to 200,000, but hey, if I tell you they are any better, then like I said earlier on, if there's any Cameroonian footballer watching this, is going to come after me.
Okay, let's finish with what's going on right now with the Cameroonian national team. To be completely honest, I follow like African football. You know, I follow African football. I'm confused.
A lot.
I don't know what's going on. From what I understand, okay, Rigobert Song, his contract was not renewed. Understandable. Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't sack him. He's a legend. Okay, it's honorable. His contract is finished. It didn't work out. Let's move on. Okay, usually here, a federation will announce the position is open. They'll receive CVs. They'll name a new coach. They'll be the ones providing the contract, and then the coach will take his duties. It seems here, if I'm not mistaken, again, I'm not 100% sure what's going on, but it seems like there's a little bit of a rift between the sports minister and the FA president, Samuel Eto'o. And it seems like the sports minister did not really trust Eto'o to hire a new coach. And they're the ones, the government seems to be the ones that decided to hire this Belgian coach, Mark Brice. Um, and Samuel Eto'o apparently reacted, or the Federation reacted, sort of surprised that they did this, saying we were not consulted. It is our prerogative to hire coaches. I mean, as of now, what exactly is going on? Does the Cameroonian Federation intend to make this a bigger fight, or are they just going to accept this? Will FIFA sort of step in for government interference, saying, government cannot do this kind of thing? Can you just navigate me through this as succinctly as possible? Because, like I said, I'm kind of confused. And it seems like, is it correct that the sports minister and the federation president are in a little bit of a cold war? Um, and if so, like, how do they work this relationship out?
Oh, Maher, when you called, I told you I was doing a little running around. From my inside information, the federation, the executive committee members are having a secret meeting right about now. It's 11 a.m. Cameroon time. So from there, hence, we'll know if Eto'o is going to name his own coaches. It's a crucial meeting, and I think I'll be getting more information. Yeah, I'll be getting more information about that when it gets over, because I have some people there as well. But Mahe, I don't know if you noticed when Song was named in 2022, early 2022. Did you notice the whole inscription there?
I didn't. No.
You didn't? Okay.
Mm.
The same way Brace has been appointed is the same way Rigobert Song was appointed. What
Okay.
does that mean? The minister, surely, and I'm not saying this because I want to turn an interest in the signing of the contract of Antonio Conceição. By then, okay, Eto'o comes in, and then we finished third at the AFCON. The minister wants Antonio Conceição to extend his contract. He came out to make public on the state television that Conceição did his best, and the results were not worse on the football field. So he would wish for Conceição to extend his contract. Okay, that's the first thing. Eto'o, on the other hand, had promised Rigobert Song a position as coach of the Indomitable Lions, which was always going to come to him anyways, because he was a great servant, leader of the team, two-time winner of the AFCON. And then Eto'o went directly to the presidency, bypassed his hierarchy. Song was appointed under haute instruction from the presidency of the Republic. Now, same scenario, Marc Brice, haute instruction from the presidency of the Republic. And the government is in full rights due to a convention that was signed in 2015 between the government and the Cameroon Football Federation. He will has the right to appoint coaches and staff of the Indomitable Lions. There's even a video, I don't know if I can lay hands on it, I'm going to send it to you afterwards, of the now president of the Cameroon Football Federation stating that the government has all rights to name coaches because they pay the coaches. The monies come from them. Just to buttress this point of the whole instruction, on the 10th of February is Cameroon's Youth Day. The President of the Republic, His Excellency President Paul Biya, came out to say he's kept close tabs on our football, and the reports have not been good. And he has instructed the minister on what to do to bring back serenity, because football gives joy to Cameroonians. 26 million plus people, we breathe, we live football. There's always that anxiety when the Indomitable Lions play. And when we have poor performances like what we recorded in Cote d'Ivoire, it doesn't sit well, even with the head of state. So government went on. The list that was sent by the federation, it was seen by the sports minister. The list of Jose Passiero, Fabio Cannavaro as well, Hervé Renard. Those were the three proposals from the Cameroon Football Federation. But at what cost? Hervé Renard was asking close to our economy, our economy, our budget in economy. So the government could not afford that sum. It was just too expensive for the government's liking. Fabio Cannavaro, they found out too that he was expensive. Same thing with Jose Passiero. And they decided that, listen, most coaches who have made a name in Cameroon before have not been household names. So let's do our own scouting, and then we see someone that we can bank on. That is how Marc Brice came into place. And then he was appointed under a whole instruction of the presidency of the Republic. And the thing is, with the way everything is going, I fear for the worst, because Marc Brice has to give his list of players selected by the end of this weekend through the state media. But up to this point, the federation has not endorsed Marc Brice. There is no post on all social media networks or all social handles that shows that Marc Brice is the new coach of the Indomitable Lions. So they don't recognize him. The thing is, the federation they play a role in inviting these players. The ministry cannot talk to clubs. The federation, liaise between the clubs and back home.
I'm trying to imagine Napoli receiving a letter from the Ministry of Sport in Cameroon is going to be a little bit weird. Yeah.
So it's really going to be difficult. And the federation has not endorsed the coach, but they are in their full right. FIFA wrote to the federation. Basically, what FIFA said, you always know how FIFA goes about their things. They are not condemning and saying, oh no, the government is wrong for appointing a coach. And they are not saying the federation is in all rights to appoint the coach, and then whatever happens, happens. FIFA simply put out a release noting that the federation should be autonomous, but FIFA is aware of the agreement that was signed between both parties in 2015 and should be respected, but that the federation should be autonomous. So how are you going to interpret that? So both institutions, or the government rather, and FECAFOOT have taken that and they have interpreted it in their own way. FECAFOOT is saying, oh, they have told us that they don't want any government interference, so we have taken in our hands to try and say that we appoint a new coach. And by the way, that the convention that was signed in 2015 should be reviewed. That's what FIFA has said, that it should be reviewed. And the government is simply telling them, FIFA has said all these things, but they said these things should be respected. So before anything, we want this list of coaches to be respected. So it's really a tricky situation, Mahe. It's a tricky situation, and one that a country like Cameroon should not find itself in.
It's a little bit of a mess, and I can sort of understand both sides. If the federation acts autonomously, hires a coach for 150,000 euros a month, and then they are not able to pay him, and then the federation president is replaced, and then the federation is in debt, who's going to come bail them out? It's probably going to be the government, and then they're going to be in a mess. Yeah. And at the same time, it should be the prerogative of the federation to hire the coach. So I kind of understand both sides. And it's a messy situation. We should be receiving updates very, very soon. I'm going to leave it there because it took way too much of your time. Bambe Wanneh, Giovanni, thank you for your time, man. Thank you for explaining all of this and as an objective, as comprehensive, as a manner as we could. Overall, I kind of just want Cameroonian football to be sort of back, especially the national team. I want them to be back, serene with their coaches, with their players, and performing at the level that they're supposed to be performing at. Because everybody knows they're if they're not the best team in the history of African football, then they're second.
Yeah, behind Algeria.
No, behind Egypt.
I
Behind Egypt,
got you.
brother. Behind Egypt. No, I think hey, that's another episode for another time. Is a debate on who
Yeah.
is the best of all time. But I think many people would have Cameroon because of their success at the World Cup and at the AFCON as well, combined. Anyways, I think we're gonna leave it there. Any last words? We have 2 minutes left on this call. Any last words?
Yeah, just definitely if there's any new thing coming on my table, I'm going to let you know. So we're hoping that everything goes well so we can safely prepare the game against Cape Verde, because in all this I can only see the game against
Yeah.
Cape Verde, and it's going
Cameroon
to
is
be
sitting
really
on
tough.
4 points.
4 points with Libya on
It's a
4 points
difficult,
too.
it's a
I think
difficult group.
it's a very difficult group to make it out of.
Angola, I
And
believe,
it's
is in
Angola
there.
equally
Yeah, Cape Verde.
difficult.
Yeah, four top teams. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll leave it there. Thanks again for your time. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the African Five-A-Side podcast. Please go follow Giovanni over on Twitter. I'm going to post his @ in the description of this video. And thanks for listening. And we'll speak to you all very soon as we begin to ramp up our coverage for the CAF Champions League final between Esperance de Tunis and Al Ahly. Take care. We'll speak soon. Peace.